Good afternoon and welcome to another edition of What We Should Know, coming to you from Cambridge Community Television, 438 Mass Avenue. We have with us Paul Stephen Stone.
Hello, good to be here.
And Paul is wearing a shirt, a symbol of
An unabashed
struggle.
Presentation of commercial effort to support the Standing Rock Sioux tribe, reject the Dakota Access Pipeline. Power to the people.
Sure.
Yeah, hopefully Obama will wake up one morning and realize he can send U.S. Marshals to protect people from these. I can't believe that the state or the federal government has allowed them to sick dogs on the protesters.
Wow.
It's just beyond belief. There's been a lot that's happened lately that I find beyond belief. Really, it's kind of sad. We're not living in a free society anymore. It's just not free. It's free if you have the money to buy what you need, political power, I suppose. But for most of us, it's not free.
It's only free for the wealthy and powerful, it seems to be the case. And the poor, children, women, blacks, indigenous are not protected.
Well, just think about it. The people's candidate, Bernie Sanders, was absolutely just thrown aside. I mean, more people came out to see Bernie than had any interest in seeing Hillary, and it was just cast aside. It was absolutely just an annoyance to the powers that be. Hillary was going to be crowned, and the coronation was not going to be stopped by anybody. And it's still the active scenario, even though she basically was proven to have cheated, even though we see a lot more cheating than they brought up when they talked about the leaked DNC emails. It was clearly collusion, and she should have been disqualified. Nobody will disqualify her because the truth of the matter is the fix is totally in, and she's going to walk to the presidency, and she's going to be handed the presidency on a platter. So, sad to say, folks, this is the state of the government that doesn't stand up to protect our rights and doesn't seem to have any interest in a fair, clean election, he said.
It's true. Paul, you brought something very interesting, Shakespearean play.
Oh, yes.
You wrote.
That I channeled. And this is not the play with all the dialogue. This is the play as seen through the Cliff Notes version. So, which is an important distinction because I didn't feel like getting involved in writing these and thous and curious elocution tools.
Without further delay, thanks ever so much for bringing it along.
Oh, okay. So do you want me to read?
That would be great.
The Tragic Comedy of Queen Hillary and the Donald, a play by William Shakespeare as channeled by Paul Stephen Stone. Main characters: Queen Hillary Clinton, whose plot to become, at any cost, the chief potentate of America with 2 Ks, is the main driver of this recently discovered Shakespearean play. America, 2 Ks, is a small banana republic off the northeast coast of Central America. With a democratic tradition going back over 200 years, America, 2 Ks, prides itself on its much vaunted reputation for holding free and fair elections. Little realizing Hillary Clinton, Queen Hillary, and her dollarcratic party cohorts have something else planned for America's upcoming primary elections. Something entirely different from free and fair. Queen Hillary's oft-quoted line, "to cheat or not to cheat," became a battle cry for mid and upper level bank executives when the first new Shakespearean play in 400 years, was first performed in London's Globe Theatre. Hillary's sobering soliloquy, "to cheat or not to cheat," still resonates in the corridors of power, especially among those chasing fame and fortune in Washington, D.C. In taking over the Dollarcratic National Committee, DNC, brain trust of America's, 2 Ks, historically liberal political party, Hillary Clinton successfully gains control of one of 2 mechanisms that feed chief potentate candidates to the American Republic and its people. Anointing herself chief potentate of America will be as simple as Hillary consolidating her control of the DNC, something that receives a big boost when her former campaign manager and current henchwoman, Debbie What's Up Schultz, is appointed chairperson of the DNC, a position from which she can easily reach out to state dollarcratic parties for clandestine help in sabotaging Hillary's opponents' campaigns, if necessary. Hillary's master plot receives an even bigger boost when Donald J. Trump, the Donald himself, wins the repugnant party's presidential nomination. It is thought Donald is the only repugnant party candidate a much-wounded Hillary could actually beat in the general election. Most of this, not the Donald part, of course, but the rest, all flows from an agreement between Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, and the Dollarcratic leadership in 2008. The Clintons, acting swiftly to offset Hillary's loss of the Dollarcratic primary, conspire secretly with soon-to-be President Obama and the rest of the party's leaders about their plan to anoint Hillary as America's next chief potentate, of course, after Obama's 2 terms are done. The first installment of Obama's obligation in the deal is to appoint Hillary Secretary of State. Can you scroll a little more? A small price to pay for her endorsement, which helps unite the party after a hard-fought and divisive primary. Is this working for you?
It is. It's working great.
America, 2Ks, is such a tightly controlled banana republic that the political and financial elite that control the country are quickly able to reach agreement to clamp down on the federal government and the mainstream press tightly enough to A, protect Hillary from being prosecuted for her crimes, and B, enforce a total blackout on Dollarcratic primary rivals Bernie Sanders and Martin O'Malley, and C, ensure Hillary wins the chief potentate's job, a seat of power she will immediately share with Bill, assuming he can keep his hands off the interns. But the one element neither Hillary nor Bill nor the entire Dollarcratic establishment takes into consideration is the joker in the deck, Julian Assange.
Terrific. Julian the Joker Assange.
Go for it, yeah.
Founder of WikiLeaks and fearless advocate for honesty and transparency in government. Assange, hidden away at the Ecuadorian embassy in London, is leaking Hillary's dark secrets in a drip, drip, drip scenario that rivals Chinese water torture. Meanwhile, the entire world watches and waits to see how much of Assange's daily damage Hillary's campaign can sustain. It is Assange who leaks DNC emails that prove the fix was in for Hillary's almost a year before the primaries. Assange who hints the murder of 27-year-old DNC worker Seth Rich may have been a calculated response to the leaked emails making Rich, thank you, the 51st mysterious death in the infamous Clinton body count. Assange, who threatens to release something too incriminating for the authorities to ignore. Assange, whose life is at risk. His enemies have far too much power to not be feared. He might
Do well.
He might do well to sleep with one eye open, since he represents the last major obstacle between Hillary and the chief potentate's palace. Having once suggested sending a drone to kill Assange, Hillary, too much in the spotlight to risk murder, is forced to sit patiently and wonder which of her manifold private conversations and nefarious deeds will next appear in the nation's 24-hour news cycle. Meanwhile, Hillary and the DNC minions have concocted a story placing blame for the leaks on the Russians, hoping to divert attention away from the context of the leaks themselves. Not surprisingly, the FBI has been brought into the frame to construct the Russian cover story.
To confirm the Russian.
And to confirm, thank you, the Russian cover story and create more distraction from leaked evidence of Hillary's election fraud. Which brings us to...
The American federal government. Much like any federal agency in a backwater banana republic, the American, with 2Ks, government is an easily corrupted tool of the ruling elite. Nowhere was that fact more evident than when the much feared and once respected Federal Bureau of Investigation became a lapdog to Hillary when investigating her use of a private email server in the basement of her house. Those in the know are not surprised by FBI Director James Comey testifying that Hillary has not committed a crime, that her extremely careless handling of our nation's most guarded secrets clearly jeopardized the country's security, but wasn't the result of any criminally culpable intent on Hillary's part. Net result, Hillary walks. Additionally, nobody in the country buys Attorney General Loretta Lynch's explanation of why Bill Clinton and she had a secret meeting on the tarmac of the Phoenix airport just 3 days before the FBI exonerates Queen Hillary. We were just talking about our grandchildren and golf, the AG explains, amazingly without once smirking. The meeting was only reported because a TV reporter just happened to see Clinton walk onto Lynch's private plane. Both the Justice Department and the FBI have seen their reputations and moral authority dramatically damaged by their reluctance to do their duty when it comes to Queen Hillary. Lucky for them, the toothless national press seems highly disinterested in government malfeasance. Speaking of which,
the mainstream media is played, according to Shakespeare's explicit instructions, by two actors, both seemingly blind, whose main contribution for most of the play consists of walking into walls, falling off the stage, and running down blind alleys. Donald J. Trump, the Donald, brash and coarse billionaire and surprise victor in the Republican primaries, whose egomania and sexist worldview, not to mention a perverted need for self-entertainment, serves to add tension and humor to Shakespeare's ongoing narrative of Hillary Clinton's rise and fall. Suspense builds through the audience's slowly forming realization that Trump, little more than a sleazy snake oil salesman at best, could easily, through the slightest twist of fate, win the presidency and, yes, gain access to the nuclear codes. It never seems likely, but it does remain frighteningly possible, a prospect so chilling it makes Donald J. Trump unpalatable to the majority of mature, rational adults in America, with two Ks, while he remains an entertaining foil to the excessively serious white Christian men of the repugnant party. Donald struggles to understand the press, which once seemed to love every golden word that passed through his lips, but now, from the moment he won the nomination, the media has developed an antipathy as strong as their former fascination. He understands they've changed their attitude towards him. He just can't understand why. Conspiracists, thank you, won't be surprised to learn Trump's longtime friend and golfing buddy, Bill Clinton, was the first to advise Donald to run for the presidency.
Victims 4. 4 middle-aged women claiming to have been abused by the Clintons. 3 of the victims on the left, Kathleen Wiley, Juanita Broderick, and Paula Jones, accused Bill Clinton of sexual assault. The 4th victim on right was a 12-year-old rape victim whose 42-year-old rapist was vigorously defended by a young Hillary Clinton many years ago in Arkansas. All 4 are brought together by Donald Trump for a press interview 1 hour before a scheduled presidential debate. In keeping with the press's unified stance on protecting Hillary, CNN is the only one of the major broadcast or cable networks to give it any airtime. And they mysteriously lose their audio at the event. So all you see are soundless pictures of the 4 women and Trump. Nor does the media take much notice an hour later when Donald brings the 4 victims as his guests to the debate. Bill, the internist, Clinton, hands down winner of the creepiest former POTUS, alive or dead, having turned the chief potentate's palace into a frat cave party zone during his first residential stay. Staunch partner in crime to Hillary, who shares the unquenchable thirst for power and purse that ultimately sparked and propelled, along with sex, most of the diverse scandals that have riddled the public and private lives of the Clintons. Never one to pass up an easy dollar, or an easy woman for that matter, Bill Clinton set up the multi-billion-dollar Clinton Foundation as a giant money laundering machine to harvest all the dollars Hillary could shake loose from foreign regimes while serving as Secretary of State. The foundation's much ballyhooed good works are fronts for raising vast sums, most of which go to pay for the foundation's administrative costs and fundraising. Another institution that exists to serve no greater cause than itself, just like its founders.
Bernie the Innocent Sanders, populist politician, socialist-leaning senator, thwarted candidate for the Democratic nomination, victim of massive election fraud and voter suppression by the very woman he now finds himself endorsing for the presidency. An endorsement leading inevitably, he believes, to the detriment and misadventure of his soul and reputation, proving once again that all who align their fortunes to that of the Clintons inevitably pay the price. Eventually, we see Bernie looking old and tired, still feeling the effects of campaigning 24/7 for the last year, slightly disheveled, his hair ablaze like a white halo. He seems a mere ghost of his former self, pacing the Capitol's corridors night after night like Hamlet's father, calling for vengeance, a redo of the campaign plus $15 minimum wage. He holds up the 2016 Dollarcratic platform to prove to anyone who cares he had an impact on Hillary's policy. Not exactly a revolution, he says, shrugging it off, but hey, you got to start somewhere. Barack Big O Obama, perhaps the most tragic of the play's characters, his pact with Clinton's forged in the moments just prior to winning his nomination in 2008, while the first blush of victory was still taking hold, and now, 8 years later, finding himself facing an aspect of that agreement that will ultimately drag him down for all history to see. Tasked with winding down his presidency with his credibility, legacy, and integrity seemingly in shatters, a consequence of his fortunes becoming inexorably joined to those of Hillary Clinton, Obama must run a government that has little faith left in its commander-in-chief. The Washington bureaucracy knows, as much as anyone knows, just how far the Obama Justice Department and FBI bent the law to serve Hillary's unshakable drive to become chief potentate. Obama's Department of Justice and FBI both shame themselves in the mad rush to vindicate a woman whose negligence truly reaches criminal proportions. As Shakespeare opens up the dramatic action of Hillary and the Donald, we find Barack Obama's presidency finishing the final leg of its journey with its compass set to cruise control and its captain off the bridge. Hillary is racing furiously towards the finish line, hoping to cross over before her election fraud lawsuits hit the courts or Assange leaks hit the news cycle once too often. Aside from her campaign worries that the international media will break the scandalous tale of America's corporate media censoring their new delivery to favor Hillary Clinton's campaign, their news delivery to favor Hillary Clinton's campaign. Meanwhile, the presidency, showing little interest in the affairs of state, disappears daily for a pickup game at the Senate gymnasium, leaving his faithful vice president in charge of the country. The president waves as he leaves the ball game with a gym full of sycophantic opponents. Let me know if Putin calls, he says breezily as he moves out, to which the vice president calls after him, what do I do if he doesn't call? True to form, Shakespeare saves his last comment about Hillary and the Donald for his parting poetic stanza.
And now we must bring down the curtain on Hillary, Bill, and their victims 4, searching for evidence of which we are certain, evidence the FBI woefully missed before, proving Bernie, not Hillary, won the day, and honesty its own victory proclaims. Some potentates are born to palace life, while others born to wear prison chains. For never was a story told of more woe and sickly sweets than this of Hillary's emails and the Donald's 3 a.m. tweets. And there it is, there it is.
It's terrific.
That was fun. That was a lot of fun. Hopefully it was fun for you folks, but that was a lot of fun to write and to bring to life. It took a long time. For me, usually these things get written in a couple of hours, and that it says it's 2.5 days of writing and rewriting. So, and I see a couple of mistakes that I have to clean up, but that's all right.
No, it was terrific. Congratulations, Paul.
Thank you. Thank you.
So it's a creative process. It's something that you've been doing for many years. Isn't that the case?
Yeah. The evolution of this particular concept, I think I probably have used the description of this election being like a Shakespearean play. I've used that expression a few times because it is so complex, layered. There's so many plots going on back and forth. Every state primary is a plot, so it's really, Shakespeare has many plots going on in some of his best work. So it seemed Shakespearean to me, and then it struck me that it would be fun to present it as though it was a Shakespearean play, and I was just writing the fable cliff notes for it. And I saw a couple places where I had to say, instead of saying Hillary and the Donald, it should be Queen Hillary and the Donald. In an earlier version, the name was Hillary and the Donald. So, by William Shakespeare.
So it's fun for you doing these things, isn't it? It's
this one
creative
especially.
artists.
This one especially. My wife last night, who's a very good critic for me and editor, she thought it was too long, and it is too long for what you normally want to do in a blog posting. It's far too long, but this is just fun, and anybody that's enjoying themselves can stay with it through the end, and anybody who's not can leave anytime they want, and it doesn't matter to me. I enjoyed the whole thing, so.
I'm sure our audience did as well.
I hope so.
There will be new chapters to write, won't there?
Yes, the previous piece that I wrote, which was a news story America will never get to see. A news story America deserves to read, and then parens, but never will. And it's a mock newspaper that somebody took seriously. About Hillary being indicted for her crimes, for her election fraud, which would have been nice. If you go to the bottom of this last one, you can find a connection, usually a link. You go below that, I think, or no? Oh, maybe it's already there.
It's already there.
There you go.
Want to show it?
Sure. All this work can be found at paulstonesthrow.com, which is my blog post. So, I don't know about others of my burner friends, but I've been very angry about the press ignoring all the obvious signs of criminality and fraud that have been involved with this particular primary, Democratic primary, and for them to have ignored it, and for the federal government to ignore it, especially when there were petitions that were sent to the White House begging Obama to step in and stop the fraud. Makes this whole thing very, very sickening. So I felt the real crying need for the newspapers to write an article about what's been going on. And so I've written a news article that purports to be the article that I would love to see. And it's me making up certain things in order to have it fill itself out. So that's it. That's the story of Hillary Clinton.
Congratulations for becoming a journalist.
Thank you. I studied journalism in school. Hillary Clinton indicted for stealing Democratic nomination. Wouldn't that make a great newspaper headline?
Story.
Could Votergate be her undoing? And then the idea of federal agents storming into Hillary Clinton's campaign headquarters yesterday, armed with search warrants, and began removing boxes of files and campaign computers. At the same time, papers were served at the Clinton mansion in Chappaqua, New York, accusing Hillary Clinton, the Democratic National Committee, and various state Democratic parties with conspiracy to commit fraud in numerous Democratic parties, primaries, and caucuses running from the beginning of February 2016 to the final days of the contest in June in a multi-pronged conspiracy now known as Votergate. In short, The indictment charges the Hillary Clinton campaign and the Democratic National Committee with a host of fraudulent acts, including the systematic purging of Sanders supporters from state voter lists, the switching of party registrations to disqualify Sanders supporters from voting in Democratic primaries, the hacking of electronic voting machines to alter voting results, and the purposeful destruction of Sanders voters' ballots. After months of inaction, in the face of thousands of complaints and a national media blackout that never allowed a single word of Hillary's alleged election crimes to see the light of day, James Comey, FBI director, apparently decided to initiate a comprehensive FBI investigation of Clinton's controversial primary election victories. Comey, fighting to restore his reputation after the Obama administration failed to indict Hillary Clinton for her flagrant carelessness in the handling of the country's top secrets, refused to comment on why his agency delayed investigating what has been described as the most flagrant election fraud conspiracy since the days of Tammany Hall. Tammany Hall referring to a notoriously corrupt Democratic machine that was the most powerful political broker in New York State in the early 1800s. Comey refused to comment for this story, but an unnamed source within the federal government told the Truthful Times, the name of this newspaper, the director is a real straight shooter and couldn't live with himself after being forced by his superiors to serve as the administration's Colin Powell in explaining the government's non-indictment of Hillary Clinton for her gross negligence in handling state secrets. Today's FBI action has been on the table since supporters of Bernie Sanders first began complaining of systematic election fraud going back to the Iowa caucus, where video footage showed Clinton delegates clearly undercounting Sanders delegates while inflating their own numbers.
The FBI's surprise investigation and resulting indictment raises many questions about the alleged months-long election fraud conspiracy. First and foremost, as many political commentators have already begun asking, what did President Obama know about the conspiracy, and when did he first come to know about it? Also, what role did the president play in protecting Hillary and the DNC from any government response to their alleged crimes?
Then it goes off to a mysterious election theft continuation, which doesn't exist. But anyway, that was just to give you a sense of a newspaper article that deserved to see the light of day, but hasn't as of yet, except through my imagination.
There's still much to take place in the 3 weeks before the election.
True.
And in the years then after the election. Paul, I believe you mentioned a concept and an idea that you have that an impeachment could take place immediately after the election.
Yes.
Could you explain?
One of the things that has been sort of suspended for the moment was the question of Hillary's perjury in front of Congress. She was on oath, and there were a number of instances where her answers were not either truthful or not informed by the truth. So, and I'm sure she would hide behind that. She would say, well, I didn't know, I thought it was. But the truth of the matter is there are a number of places where she clearly misled Congress with her answers. And the reason that nobody's doing anything right now, and there are many other crimes, she could be indicted for this crime that the FBI is letting her off the hook for.
Right.
But Congress, in the form of the Republican majority in the House, is not going to do anything to further anger voters against the Republicans. So anything that happens will happen after the election. And it's very possible if Hillary wins the election that she is indicted either on the first day or before, because there will be a lame duck Congress in place, as there will be a lame duck president, and they can choose to impeach somebody anytime they want. And I think there's more than enough to go on if they choose to impeach her about her carelessness with government secrets, her destroying evidence. I mean, that's the thing that the FBI makes the FBI look so foolish, that she destroyed evidence. She had the stuff. She had bleach poured on the hard drives. She's just clearly obstructing justice and destroying evidence. And the FBI treats it as though she just wants her privacy. Of course she wants her privacy. And then the way...
She wants her privacy to steal the election.
Yes, and she wants her privacy to extend to her aides, who have done numerous things that have violated laws and regulations. But the FBI has conveniently given all of them...
Carte blanche.
yeah, what's the word I'm looking for? Well, they're basically pardoned. I mean, they're whatever the word.
Immunity.
Immunity. Has given them immunity, right. Now, I'm sure it's conditional, and the truth of the matter is it might not look too good if Congress chooses to investigate, because the reality is the FBI basically was acting like they were fawning over her. They didn't put her under oath when she was giving testimony. They didn't record the testimony.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, no, and a lot of things that they did, they said to gain information. The truth of the matter is they gave away their leverage. You know, they promised
Because
Cheryl...
they weren't recorded. She wasn't on tape.
With that, yes, and with Cheryl Mills, who's got a number of questionable deeds, they gave her immunity and promised to not take anything from her
Testimony.
her computers. They had her hard drives that would, somehow compromise her. I mean, it's almost like they were working for Clinton. They were the last bunch of people involved in the cover-up, essentially. So they were the end of the cover-up. It was a cover-up. You don't need motivation or intent to be. It's just like you don't need motivation or intent to get a ticket for driving 75 miles an hour in a 50-mile-per-hour zone. You don't need a proof of intent. And they've been locking people up now for the last few years without any intention, just for being stupid, taking stuff home that they shouldn't have taken home, or putting stuff on their own computer that shouldn't have been on their own computer. She has gotten away with, and I've mentioned that the latest and probably the strongest theory that I hear now out in the marketplace of ideas is that one of the reasons the federal government had to vindicate her was because Obama had been compromised with her system, that he had made phone calls to her using an alias, so he knew that there was something that he had to hide. And so the feeling being that Obama's safety and security needed to be protected above the country's. So there you have it, or his legacy, whatever the hell you want to call it. The truth of the matter is we've been absolutely hosed. We've been hosed by the Obama administration and its underlings. Its attorney general, who chooses to meet with the husband of somebody who's been under the FBI microscope for a year, 3 days before they vindicate her. The whole thing stinks. It doesn't pass the smell test. None of it. So
it's a cabal. It's truly what one has seen in so-called banana republics or in dictatorships, that a group of ruling elites take control of the country, run roughshod over the laws that are in place to protect the public and to prevent misuse of power. And this is taking place in front of cameras in the United States at the highest echelons of power at a time in which power is changing hands. This is a very dangerous moment, particularly through the aggressive statements of the Donald, who maintains in public that crooked Hillary is going to steal the election. And the evidence is that she truly is. Then the question, of course, for the Republican Party is, how do they support their candidate while he, at the same time, is being taken apart for being sexist, racist, misogynistic?
He's like a teenager who just learned how to curse, and he's enjoying this newfound power immensely. It's amazing. He's really, in some ways, he's just not developed maturity. He's been used to getting his own way, and that comment about grabbing women by their genitalia only relates to the fact that he is used to getting his own way, being A, a celebrity, and B, a very rich, wealthy man. So But, I think Hillary's just as, if not more dangerous. She's talking about going after the Russians for this, this whole concocted story about the Russians. It's just meant to divert you from the substance, the content of the emails themselves. They're doing nasty things. They've been caught doing them, and the emails are sent out into the public to basically share that with the public. And they figure the best way that they can take attention off the content of the emails is to make it part of a Russian plot. And that is so pathetic.
It's pathetic because it's who would have an interest basically in taking down that server? The Russians?
Oh, everybody took down that server. That was the biggest slut in American democracy historically. I mean, Hillary's server was a slut. Anybody could get in. Anybody.
It's true.
And if you
sell
think
the
they
information and manipulate it.
If you think they didn't get in when it was lying there, just waiting, with a little heart on the front that said, "I love you. Come in and spend some little time with me, soldier." Anyway, anybody that thinks that her server wasn't compromised is just a jackass because you know nothing. What would they do if they're going after? We go after Angela Merkel's cell phone. You think that they don't go after our shit?
Oh, of course.
It's ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. And Edward Snowden should be applauded as a hero, not chased as a criminal.
Without question.
Vote Jill Stein. She believes the same thing. She believes that Snowden is a hero, and as do I. And I think voting Jill Stein will at least start to take away from the duopoly, the controlled oligarchical way of controlling elections in America, is to give you two terrible choices and basically make one less worse than the other, one less evil than the other. And that's the one that they want to win, and you should vote for. And the whole thing is just ridiculous. We need to vote for the Green Party. We need to give them enough stature, enough size, enough votes to just get some government funding, which would be helpful. And it's voting for ourselves to vote for the Green Party because they want to save the planet. They want to basically stop wars. They want to forgive all college debt owed to the government and a few other things that are really fabulous ideas. They also believe in single-payer health care. So if you vote for the Green Party, you're voting for your future and for your children's future. If you vote for Hillary, you're voting out of fear, and I'm not sure that you got the right lesser of two evils because they're both pretty damn bad.
It's true. And particularly from our generation, for parents and grandparents, it makes true sense to vote for the Green Party because they're the only party that is speaking about a truly horrific reality that's being ignored both by the Democratic Party and by the Republican Party. The Republican Party refuses even to mention the concept of global warming. But global warming is without a doubt, and that's 97% of scientists worldwide recognize the reality and the consequences of global warming, and the negligence of not speaking to the question and creating at least an opportunity to save the planet is a scandal that's not being spoken about and that's being ignored, and to the detriment of future generations, without a doubt.
I think probably this is a good moment to talk about the mainstream media, which I call the mainstream mediocrity. This election is treated like a horse race. It's the only way they will discuss the election in the popular press.
It's true.
And the issues themselves almost have absolutely no traction for the press. They don't really care about the issues. They just want to know, who do you like better? You wake up this morning, you like one or the other. That's what they want to know. And they want to get those numbers out there, and they want to trumpet those numbers as though they've done some actual reporting. And they haven't. They are the most lazy, and they are totally overfed and understimulated. The mainstream media should be embarrassed. It should be ashamed of itself. There's a piece I wrote at my blog at paulstonesthrow.com that talks about how to spot the theft of a presidential election. I hope all you journalists out there will read it. You deserve to read something that talks about how you're totally ignoring the biggest news story around. And it's what? Because your corporate masters say so? That's really pretty pathetic. It's just pathetic. The American media can't report anything of substance, anything of complexity, and it wants to basically serve more entertainment. That's what it's there to do. It's send somebody pretty in front of the camera, long legs, very nice, and just distract the American public from anything.
It's about distraction, isn't it?
Yes. Better you should get a hard on than a good idea or a good insight into what's happening out there. The only thing they really want to stimulate is just sex drive. And that ain't going to make a better world for all of us. Not by a long shot.
And there's a level that's important here. The reality that on college campuses, thousands of co-eds each year are sexually assaulted and raped, that the rape culture is deeply anchored in the general population, in schools, in colleges, in universities, in the workplace, and in the general culture, to recognize that the presidential candidate of the Republican Party has taken this position that he is obsessive compulsive. In the discussion that he was having with Billy Bush, I believe Billy Bush is the son of George Bush.
No, he's a nephew.
Nephew,
Of
thank
George
you.
W.
Of George W. Bush. Thank you for the correction. That the Donald saying that he can't help himself opens the reality that he has a mental disorder. It's called OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, because he cannot control himself. And that's basically what he has stated in that televised or recorded discussion with Billy Bush. The reality is not the question as much that he denies it, but that he doesn't deny the fact that he is obsessive compulsive. That is not a recommendation to be president of the United States, a serious mental illness.
I think if we could all go to sleep for 10 years, it would be a nice, nice solution. Put the world in suspension, isolated.
A Sleeping Beauty idea.
Yes. These two candidates, from so many points of view, are totally inappropriate. Hillary is illegitimate right now. She will be, just like George W. Bush, she will be an illegitimate president. And if Donald wins, he will be a totally inappropriate president.
Oh, I like the distinction.
Yeah, she's illegitimate. He'll be legitimate, but he'll be inappropriate. So that's the choice, and the choice absolutely sucks. Whether to reward, it's your choice if you only see yourself with two options. I see myself with a third option, which is to vote for Jill Stein and try to help build up the Green Party now so that we can have it in the future to, be a real viable option. This two-party chokehold on the electoral process is just killing the democracy in this country. One of the parties, the one that represents the popular masses, has decided that it's got such, I don't know, what's the word I'm looking for? It's got the prerogative to basically tell the voters how to vote and to discard its voters' opinions or the will of the people. It's just amazing how the one reason it exists is to create a channel for people to give a voice of what they feel. To take that one reason that they exist and to turn it around entirely, which is say, we will tell the people what they're gonna get, rather than let them tell us what they want, is absolutely a repudiation of the reason that the damn party exists.
They've co-opted the entire system.
And they should be thrown out of power. A new party should take its place. Donna Brazile is as deeply involved as everybody else as a replacement for Debbie Wasserman Schultz. She's very appropriate, but she's absolutely another one who's got her hands deeply in the bloody guts of all this cheating. And Hillary should be disqualified. Since when does somebody who gets to keep the the fruits of what she's cheating for?
Let's look at Tom Brady, for instance.
Right.
That's an example of how cheating or assumed cheating is dealt with. The reality that there are thousands of witnesses, massive amounts of evidence, and a reason, a motive for her to go about conducting this behavior, and still goes unpunished and unquestioned, both by the press and by the government, is a scandal. It's a scandal worldwide.
It is a scandal. Just as them putting that pipeline under the Missouri River, that's absolutely crazy. What are we absolutely trying to put a gun to our heads? Are we trying to cut off our access to water? There are places in our country that don't have enough water. We shouldn't be ruining the water where we have the water.
And if that pipeline ruptures, the entire Missouri River downstream is polluted.
Right. A lot of people's water. And the truth of the matter is all these pipelines do spring leaks.
They do, all of them, yeah, of course.
Georgia, I think it was Arkansas, just declared a state of emergency or maybe it was Alabama. It was two southern states, one of which was Georgia. Because there's a pipeline, and if you look at what the pipeline has done to these rivers in the states, it's just sickening. It's just sickening.
Jill Stein's party, the Green Party, is the only party that would address these issues. From the concept that conservation of this planet is the only hope for mankind. It's not a hope, it's the only hope. The idea that the MIT engineers have and that a billionaire has come up with to send people to Mars, to have 1 million people live on Mars, that will be touted in just a few years, will be touted as the real solution to the destruction of planet Earth. The reality is that there's no need to destroy planet Earth. The only thing in question is the energy question. The only question that needs to be solved is shifting from fossil fuel to solar energy. It's cheap, can be stored, and it's available technologically worldwide. The reality of there being no interest to do this is simply got to do with the oil corporations and the pharmaceuticals' use of this chemical and the billions of dollars invested in that system. But I'd like to move forward in the last few minutes to get a look at the Green Party platform, because I feel it's important to get a look at basically what the Green Party platform actually says. The platform of the Green Party USA is not binding for candidates at any level. The preamble, which is important. This platform was adopted by the delegates of the membership of the Green Party USA at their annual Green Congress meeting in Chicago, May 26th to 28th, 2000. I actually find that that's possibly too old. I believe I can find a more modern variety of this.
Yeah. Well, it's important to, that's the whole value of having this candidacy be treated like a horse race, this electoral process that goes into effect. The truth of the matter is we should be talking about what it is that we want and need from somebody, and then somebody, just like Bernie basically outlined what we need, and nobody talks about what we need because they're all presenting a picture that reflects, people have put a lot of money into their campaigns. They have to be included. The Green Party does not take money from corporate interests. They take individual donations and absolutely are starved for more money. So if you feel the urge, please donate to the Green Party. Just go to Jill Stein 2016, I believe.
Exactly. That's this piece here, Power to the People, Jill 2016.
What's the URL? Can you see that?
I beg your pardon?
Can you see the address in the box in the top? The URL.
I don't know.
It doesn't matter. Just if you just Google Jill 2016, it'll all be laid in front of you. But their platform answers needs. It's not pie in the sky. It's just putting people ahead of military spending and things of that sort. We are in a permanent war mode these days, and the money that we're spending for the military is just going out the door as fast as we can spend it, and that's not going to work. It doesn't. That means that kids don't get the education or the food and nourishment they need, and it means that people have to pay for things that they can't afford, such as a health care system that's absolutely, the costs have skyrocketed, thanks unfortunately to having a third party there that for years didn't let us know what we were getting for the money. You know, so we never really equated the value of what we were getting with the money we spent. We just took it and used it and never thought about the cost. And so the costs have slowly gone up and up and up. Anyway, we can't afford to be healthy. The government has to step in and take responsibility for the welfare of its people. That's what a government's for. It's not to become small so you interfere less with the corporate masters. Corporate masters are not anybody you can trust. You need a government there that's strong and will be watchful, and not one that's controlled by the corporate masters. And that's what we got with Hillary. I don't know about Donald. That's the good thing about Donald, is he's not controlled by anybody. That's a bad thing, but it's a good thing. He's certainly not controlled by the people who control Hillary.
That's true.
The money that he gets is from a lot of small people, just like Bernie's donors. That's the money he gets as small donations. And I am not advising anybody to vote for Donald Trump. Au contraire, but I am not advising anybody to vote for Hillary. She's not worthy of that role, that position. She is not worthy of it. I don't care about the first woman. I mean, Jill Stein could be the first woman president, and I'd be perfectly happy. But not this woman. This particular woman is like the dragon lady from Terry and the Pirates.
It's true. She's
involved in every single shady situation that's happening on the fringes of her work or in the middle of her work. When she was Secretary of State, this pay-for-play situation was absolutely rampant. You know, to be able to take $250 million from a government that is killing the citizens of a neighboring country, Yemen, what are you taking money from them for? Why are you selling arms to these people? And why we're suddenly supposedly bombing in Yemen now?
I didn't know that.
I've heard that
it was just Saudi Arabia, but that we have an interest in supporting Saudi Arabia.
There's something that's recently changed that I think it has us doing bombing runs too.
I'm sure we were providing logistics up until for the Saudis.
Yeah. You know, and so nobody is watching what anybody is doing. It's just really scary. Obama seems to have, left the bridge, as I said, and
he's playing basketball.
I don't blame him. I mean, you've got Hillary's going to drag him down, and what the hell is he going to do? He better play basketball just to take his mind off of it. He looks so bad in light of what Hillary did while she was Secretary of State. And now this stuff where it looks like he's protecting himself by having Hillary vindicated. This is easily stuff that could make up a impeachment charge for Obama as well as Hillary. And, we're going to go from one impeachment to the next. That's what's going to happen. Because the people that should have been impeached, George W. and Cheney, were not impeached. Obama, whatever reason, chose to basically forgive everybody that committed crimes. The government was basically, raped by or plundered by Halliburton. Nobody seemed to care. Oh, God.
That chapter in the United States is not looked at closely enough, and I concur with you completely. The chapter in which George Bush declared war on Afghanistan several days after the attack on the World Trade Center, then went to war 2 years later then against Iraq, covered the entire financial manipulation of the subprime mortgage meltdown, which then blew up in August and September of 2008, 4 months before he left office, and which destroyed the lives of probably 10 to 12 million families in the United States, financially completely destroyed the lives of these people, enriched the banks, plundered the United States financial system, and put us in a recession that we're still dealing with now. And not to mention the scandals that went on with Bremen bringing suitcases full of money to Iraq to pay for goods and services, whatever rate they were, completely unaccounted for. This went completely unexamined by the Department of Justice, by any legal entity. And now, at the end of the Obama administration, apparently Obama, through his negligence, could be indicted and impeached, and Hillary Clinton probably, if we've understood you correctly, is likely to be impeached in a lame duck session.
No, that the possibility of her being impeached is a cloud hanging over us. Whether or not it ultimately rains or just turns to pass by remains to be seen, because there are all these political situations that one would further the idea of an impeachment, and the other way could either stall it or hinder it.
Thanks for being here, Paul.
Thanks for having me.
It was a great session and very entertaining. We appreciate your...
My pleasure.
A Stone's Throw, Paul Stone's blog. Get a look at it. It's terrific stuff.
PaulStonesThrow.com.